guess everybody's been participating in this big feast. I'm going to be like the little breath mint that you get after your big meal. Let's hope it's a good breath mint. You don't have like this really weird taste in your mouth. So my name is Ruberto. I'm a developer and a line manager. I've been coming up to my 10th year at the end of this year programming. That's my kid. His name's Levi. Prior to me being a developer, I worked in a lumber yard. This is a true story. And I cut down trees and made lots of roofing timber. I cut down 12,632 trees. I know this because I kept a log. As a dad, I can make those jokes. Sort of one of my hobbies. I work for a company called Prodigy Finance, and you've heard like everything about them. We help students that want to study postgraduates all over the world. We've lent to almost 19,000 students, lent almost $1 billion, 150 countries, lots of interesting things. Anyways, my talk today is going to be about memes. But not the memes that you're sort of thinking about. The memes that I'm going to be talking about is off of the branch of science called memetics. And this is almost like genetics, right? So my wife she studied biology. She's like way smarter than me. And often she talks to me about how cells can mutate and adapt. And so in genetics, you have a certain fitness. So certain things are really fit. Like my kids got detached earlobes because my wife's got detached earlobes, and that's a very strong genetic trait. This is, by the way, a picture of cancer cells. It's from the National Cancer Institute, where cells do this a lot. But the study of memetics is very similar to genetics, where you have ideas and they have fitnesses, right? So ideas outlive other ones, and that's what sort of memes are. They're these ideas that everyone throws out, and certain ones like resonate with people, and people pick them up and then share them with all their friends, and everyone has a good laugh. So this talk is pretty much that I was looking at the last 10 years of me programming, and I was like, what are these like really big themes? What are these really big ideas, memes, like these overall mindsets that people have that I've adapted, that have sort of helped me along this journey. So I don't think that everyone's going to sort of resonate with all of these, so I hope that some of them resonate with you and you can take them away. Cool. The first one is an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. My mentor, the person that taught me programming, he was actually here, but he's had to leave early, his flight's leave. He was one that sort of shared this with me right in the first week of me programming. I was given the Wise Poignant Guide to Ruby, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, only insane people write Ruby. This is just so cool. And I came from like a history of writing Delphi code, which was a lot more boring, but I did a lot of fun with it. Anyways, he shared this with me, that if you give me, he shared this quote, if you give me 6 hours to cut down a tree, I'll spend the first 4 hours of it sharpening my axe. Apparently that came from Abraham Lincoln. And with the shelf life of knowledge, I think us within this industry know exactly how quickly things just fall out of view. Everything just sort of, you learn it, and then like 6 months ago there's a new framework or a new patch or something, and a lot of what you learned is now gone. But it's very important for us to continue, even though it seems a little desponding. Like you read a 700-page book, and you think, yes, this is great, and then it lasts for a year, and you're like, oh, I have to do that again, oh my gosh. So I really like books that show you where to look for things, but don't exactly tell you what to see. So this is my last year. These are a number of books that I went through. Shout out to Abdi. I read his Exceptional Ruby. That was very cool. A lot of these books were, in a large portion of these books were doing that exact thing. They were helping me see new things. So far this year, I'm only on 4, so my ideal is to do 100 books this year, so I'm a little behind. But a lot of these books have really given me like these like super goggles. I get to see new situations in a very different light. And a lot of the time, instead of just reacting to stuff, I'm now like sitting back and objectively looking at the things that I'm seeing and being able to pull from them a lot of interesting ideas. And I think this sort of was the trigger, because instead of, like Prodigy's gone through quite a lot, and I'm going to get into that. One of the things was, as we were growing, I felt really uncomfortable, and I didn't like this growth. It felt really bad, like a lot of it was spiky. And it wasn't until I started reading a couple of books, it like really made me open my eyes, and I was like, oh my word, there's so many interesting problems. And in doing that, I was able to help a good number of devs sort of see the light as well. Cool. Cool, so that's the first one. The second one is market your mastery. All right, here is a medieval place. We're all adventurers, and we're gonna go to the city, right? Riding on a horse in a city like this will have stables, it will have blacksmiths, it will have apothecaries, it will have all the things we need, right? So you ride and you've never been here before, and you need a sword and some new horseshoes for your horse. Like, where do you go? How do you get there? So you start asking people around. I need to get a blacksmith. I need a blacksmith to make me a new sword, and I need a blacksmith to help me with some horseshoes. And, you know, what are people going to say? Oh, yeah, go to, like, Mr. Oakenthorn down that road. He'll do horseshoes, but he really is bad at swords. And a lot of us, when I put this sort of perspective onto looking at my work, a company is almost like that. It's like this like big city that you're working in, and each person has got their own skill sets. And oftentimes you need something, so you'll go to people and say, "Oh, I really need this done," right? And if your skills are really well known to your team, you'll be able to find the right person to get you the right thing, and this also plays true outside of companies. It also plays true to the whole community that you're in. Into this whole Rubyfuza, the Ruby scene in the whole world, right? So how do you sort of market your skills so that when people need something, they know where to go to you? One of the things I did is I made a blog. It's called The Legendary Blog. The other thing I did was 8 years ago, jumped in with Rubyfuza and started helping out here, and they were just like, hey, we need help. So I was like, I can build HTML. I'll help your website. I'll do your website. I was very much learning. I had very little skills in HTML, but I went out and like repurposed the site and every static site generator that I could think about, and found one that really made sense. And since then, I've just sort of moved from one thing to the next. Outside of that, I've jumped in with Tanaka at the Tech Leadership Meetup. So this is a meetup that we have every month. And this has been like really interesting. Like, I started off with just a couple people, and it's now booming. But a lot of the ideas and the thoughts that have been shared there have been very cool. And I know a ton of people now that when I have a problem, I know exactly where to go to. The other things that I've been doing, I've been on a couple podcasts. I've done a couple talks. This is my second one at Rubyfuza. The first one I fumbled so many times, but it was really fun. It was very cool, my first talk ever. And so I'm doing it right now. I'm being able to share a lot of these ideas and skills, and if you ever need help with them, you can reach out to me in any of these mediums, and I can help you. Cool. So be able to market your skill set is very important. You can do this in your work as well. All right. So this is something that was really big for me, and I think if you're a consultant or you're dealing with companies, this is also going to be very important. That companies evolve all the time, right? A caterpillar starts as an egg, which is very different from a caterpillar, and a caterpillar goes into a chrysalis, which is super different from a caterpillar, and a butterfly emerges out of a chrysalis, which is super different from a chrysalis. And so it's the same thing with companies. A lot of the time, we sort of come to a company and, whoops, go back. Please don't go forward again. Cool. You have companies of various sizes. So when I joined Prodigy, I'll give you a bit of a story here. I was dev number 8. The company was like 35 people. It was really small. And it felt really cool. We had a lot of freedom to do a lot of stuff. and we were just building out stuff and smashing stuff. And then we hit growth really quickly. We were like within a couple of months at 20 people, and then a couple of months after that we were like 50 people. And then all of a sudden here's compliance, and here's policies and OKRs and PIPs, and then they became PDPs. And you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And then there's a very big difference between this and, so size is one component, and then you have your alignment of your company. And then you have like tech-driven companies. This is companies like Netflix, right? The whole business offering comes straight from tech. And then you have other companies which use like a tech product that sort of supports them internally. And now you have a bit of a matrix, right? You have tech-driven companies that are at startup and at growth and at enterprise, and then you have company-supported technology options that are also at startup, growth, and enterprise. And these all feel super different from each other. They'll have very different approaches to dealing with technology, and just to have that in your mind. So if you join a company and it moves from startup to growth or growth to enterprise, and you see these changes, expect them. It's a really cool thing to have like these little goggles on your eyes to be able to anticipate these changes, and then try to figure out like how do we make those transitions very easy. And this sort of rings true within Conways Law, right? It just sort of says that if you have like a structure within your system, it will sort of reflect the social boundaries that the organization that produces that thing. What does that mean? That means if a company has like an accounting department, oftentimes you'll find that there's like a relevant accounting software that supports that team. But on the ThoughtWorks website, there's also this, that was, the Conways Law was said in 1967. So back then, like a lot of the products were supporting those organizations, where now we have what's called the inverse Conway maneuver, which is talking about the polar opposites. So if you have a tech company that has like this tech product, sometimes what will happen is you have like departments that like sort of build around certain functionality. So you can have like an app that has search functionality, and then out of that you have the company that forms a whole search team, and that can be like a whole bunch of people from different skill sets. This is a slide that was copied. Ha! I got the same leaf picture. But this is it, right? Things change all the time. Anticipate that change, and sometimes that change can't be great, so it's like additional compliance and new policies and new constraints, but that also means like more ideas. Workplaces are not binary. Like anticipate that. That's like a really cool model to have. Cool. This is a huge one. Understand that it's safe to fail. This is like really hard for businesses to sort of adapt, right? Or to even just accept. Like, yeah, it's good for you to miss your deadline. And yeah, it's never great. But like another definition of the word practice could just mean that you fail a lot. Like you shoot hoops and you miss every time until you shoot enough hoops that you start getting it in, and then eventually you start getting it. And this is true within everything. It's super unrealistic to expect from people just to get it right out of the gate all up front. So how do you fail all the time gracefully? One of the things that I do is every morning we have like a whole bunch of sticky notes and a whole bunch of stories, and some of them we've sized as like 5s and 8s, and I find the biggest, scariest story that's there that I know I'm gonna like really struggle with, and that's the one I grab first for that sprint. A lot of times we can like look how I'm gonna get a quick win out. That's the first one. It's just 1 point to a text change or whatever. I'll grab the biggest, scariest thing. It's just like when you go to gym, you don't want to go to gym and then pick up the same weights every single day and do them over and over. Eventually, you're not going to build any muscle. You're not pushing yourself. So it's very important. So I've got a very quick and dirty model for failure, and it's just these 3 steps. You fail, you record that failing, and then share that failing with everybody that's around. Otherwise, then failure actually does become a real failure. Because if you fail silently, then no one learns from it. The real experience comes in the learnings that you get from failure. And this was very evident in a quite cool research where they watched crows. And when a crow died, all his buddies would like fly around and like look at it. And a lot of people were saying that they're mourning him. Oh, there goes Frank. He's on the floor. He didn't make it. He touched 2 electric wires at the same time. But now a study has proven that these crows are actually learning how this other crow died. They're looking at him like, damn, Frank, that's what he did. Okay, don't do that, guys. Don't touch 2 wires with your different feet, right? Tell everybody you know. And that's very interesting, and it's very important. Like if animals can do that, we should be able to do that as well. Cool. Programming is problem solving, not writing code. This is like a huge thing for me. There's so many layers to what a problem can be, and in a company there are so many different problems at any one stage. Who's ever like joined a company and felt like that? Right? Like you didn't quite fit in. Like you're part of the crew, but everybody else has got this like hive mind. Right? Well, this is usually what you can feel it was labeled as like imposter syndrome. It comes up quite a lot. You get to a place and you're like, I don't really believe that I'm here, but I'm just hanging around, right? And usually this happens when you move jobs or you're in a new thing and you don't know what's going on. Well, I felt like this brick after working in a company for 4 years. And it's like, how did that happen? Like I thought that like imposter syndrome happened like right in the beginning. I realized that I was learning this new technology and everybody else was like picking it up so much faster than me, and I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I am like an imposter. But I've been in this company for 4 years, and I'm doing really good stuff. Like, it's a bit weird, right? And so one of the things that Tanaka mentioned in one of his talks a long time ago, he was talking about this concept of a well-rounded developer. All right, and he put 3 things that make any developer, and that's technical ability, the soft skills, and then your contextual knowledge of a place. So when you look at these things in the individual silos, like your technical ability, you can have like competence within your language and architecture and metrics and system design. It's all these like bits, right? Soft skills, these are like real hard, but you will use them every day. We estimate, we have conflict resolution, we have our own like discovery and evaluation, there's storytelling, there's a lot of it that we practice all the time. And then your contextual knowledge is understanding the business constraints and understanding the system, right? Those 2 things, when you move into a new company, it's very hard for you to have contextual knowledge all up front, but as you get it, like slowly feelings of imposter syndrome subside. So this is a very interesting thing that I use, a little model. What questions are your peers asking you? Are they asking you things like, hey, what is that part of that system actually doing? Or are they saying, hey, how do you do like this select thing that I've done is so slow, like how do I make it faster? Or they're saying, like, I've got a meeting now with my manager and I don't know how to approach him, and like we've had like a bit of a rough patch, I don't know what to do. Those sort of questions are playing to where your strengths are within that company. Your peers are going to recognize where your strengths are. They all say, oh, this guy's like super good with his context. He knows all the different parts of the system. He's been around for a while. You're going to hear a lot of like contextual questions coming from your peers. If you're very good technically, you're going to hear a lot of technical questions coming from your peers. And if you're very good just soft skills, people are going to ask you like these things and want to have a walk and just vent with you. So it's a very cool way to like figure out where you are on that spectrum. And it's also a cool way to say, no one's asked me like technical questions in like 6 months. Maybe I need to like go read a book or something. Cool. This comes to my 6th thing, and this is specialized. We've seen a lot of talks about many different languages, and I remember I read the Pickaxe book, my first book I ever did within Ruby, and at the end of it you have like this online shop, and it sells books, and then I was like, man, there's JavaScript and CSS, and the Ember and Angular that was coming, and I was like, oh, there's like so much now. Like just opened my mind, climbed up a little bit, and I could see a little further. And I went to my manager and I was like, okay, what do I do? Like, how do I learn all these things? Like, there's way too much. And he was like, no, just specialize, just like sit down and figure out. And so what he did is he helped me build this like skills matrix thing. So I want to share this because this is like quite a cool way of doing it, and you can do this for yourself. It's also very cool to do it in a team. So what we did is we sort of fleshed out like a whole bunch of different components to a specific skill. So this is according to the IEEE. So you have like configuration management, construction, design, testing, quality, all of these things. And you can say, okay, all of this can fit within Ruby, right? You have testing within Ruby, you have process within Ruby, you have construction within Ruby. And then you can break it down into different levels. I'm like an introductory level like tester, but I'm like super good on the front end. Like I'm like leadership level. People are coming to me. And then for each of those little blocks, you can then create like a reading thing or a work experience or like seminars you can visit or books you can read. And then what you get is this like cool little matrix where you can say, okay, here's all the things, here's the different blocks, and in that little block you get your little things that you need to do to be able to check that off and say, okay, cool, I feel like I'm now a little bit better at that one skill. And what my early on manager said, he said, make that a T, like specialize in one thing first. Get really good at that thing, because then when people come to you for questions, you won't feel like such a bit of an imposter. You'll have something to write on, and from there you can like sort of spread out. And this is a really cool matrix. You can apply that for every language that you want to learn, or every like bit of tech that you want to get. So specializing will definitely help. Cool. People are super powerful. Like this is like such a big lesson. Sometimes we feel that in a company you have to show off everything, all your skills, otherwise they're gonna like let you go at some point. And so you sort of can step on people. I'm going to show you 3 histories, and we're going to ask some questions. So like let's look quite carefully. They all started around the same time at company. So person A. Their longest streak was 5 days. They've made like almost 400 contributions. The busiest day was 18 contributions. Cool. Person B is very similar, almost 350 contributions. Their longest streak was only 5 days and only 14 contributions, but you can see it's sort of more spread out. And then person C is 930 contributions. Busiest day was 31 contributions. Longest day was also 5. Cool. So, who was the team lead out of the 3? Which one was the front-end engineer? Who delivered the most value? Who do you want in your team? And who was the junior and who was the senior? Anybody tell me the answer to any of those? Okay. Say again? The C should be front-end, because they're always like NPN. There's 1 million commits or something. So the person at the last commit was actually a grad, 930 commits. The second person was lead, and the first person was an intermediate dev. Interesting, right? So sometimes the things that you look on the surface, the things that you can, like the traditional metrics for what makes somebody important, oftentimes don't even get close to what's actually at reality. So, like, we go to company and everything, you start running and it's all good, and then somebody throws a hurdle in front of you. Here's an OKR, huh, jump, and you sort of make a, yes, and it sort of slows you down a little. Hit PDP, huh, and you jump over that one. How do we know that these things are best practice? We say they're best practice all the time. PDPs, OKRs. I think best practice just means that we find something that some of the big companies are doing and we just copy it. Because no one measures this stuff, right? Who tells before OKRs versus after OKRs that's very good? It's just a meme. It's just a thing that somebody said got a good traction and everyone's doing it. Why can't we just talk to each other like regular human beings and get stuff done, right? We've created like tons of layers in our businesses that treat people like children, like come in on time, take your leave, eat your veggies. No, that's an actual parent one. But like if we start with the assumption that everybody comes to work to do an amazing job, you'll be surprised with what you get. Treat people like adults, because they are, right? Managers are not there to control people. They're there to make great teams. And how do you know somebody is in a great team, right? They've done amazing stuff, and customers are really happy. And those are the real metrics that actually matter. Everything else doesn't really matter. It's not if you've like taken all your leave or whatnot. The other thing I've learned is people can handle the truth. If you speak to a person and you're honest, they can take it. And like sometimes we think to ourselves, like, it's the end of the year, I'm going to give some feedback on this person. But it's really hard. I have to think about all the things I've done. Well, why should it be easy if you only do it once a year? Give feedback often and all the time, and it becomes way easier to do it. And yeah, humans can hear anything if it is true. You need to live your values and your principles. I've seen some teams that nothing gets delivered out in time and everything's not going great. And like the team lead will be like, man, everything's wrong. Everything's not going good. These guys suck. But he comes into work like 20 minutes late and, you know, like pushes the work out. You have to live the values that you want to keep. People can't be what you want them to be if they can't see it. Beware of the smoke of nostalgia. If you hear the words, do you remember how it was? It was so cool. We had that thing. That is like real bad. Like change is so good. I wish I could come into the business every day and like a CEO run down the stairs and say, stop what you're doing. Everything's changed. I'll be like, yes. Bring it on. That makes life really exciting. So don't like look back at the past and just hope for that, right? I'm going to move real fast now. Please mind the understanding gap. This is like pretty cool. Who here has ever rebuilt pre-existing technology, like a system that you're given and then you rebuilt it? A couple people, right? This was a tweet by Sarah May. A rewrite will end up with the same problems as the original unless you close the understanding gap. You'll have to pay off the principal. So you're speaking about technical debt here. And so this like really hit me quite hard. I was like, damn, what's this understanding gap? I really need to learn it. What is this thing? And so you have developers that have a solution, and we have business and it has a problem. And these two bubbles come in together and they kiss, but they don't completely compensate for each other, right? You have technical obscurities that's in the background from the tech side, and you have miscommunicated subtleties from the business side. And those two little things together is the understanding gap. And those two little things over there create technical debt. So everything in the middle is your shared understanding. And in fact, Ward Cunningham, who came up with the term technical debt, this is what he had to say. He said, a lot of developers have this confused idea of what the debt metaphor by thinking that you can write poorly with the intent of doing a better job later. He says, I'm never in favor of writing poor code, but I am in favor of you writing code to reflect your current understanding of a problem, even if that understanding is partial. That means that when you have this understanding, you write your code according to it. If the business changes or something changes, if you understand that change, you can change your code. Goodbye technical debt, right? So write your code as close to the understanding as possible. That means going upstairs, forgetting product, what they said, take that with you, sit down with the people that are creating the stories and say, whoa, I want to see this in action. What are you actually looking for here? This is what this says. How is that going to help us do X and Y? Get the full story. It helps you eliminate a lot of the problems that will come up ahead. All right, this is also quite a big one. I went through like a little bit of a burnout last year around Rubyfuza time. And so one of the things that I did is stop and had like a regular introspection. And so there's 5 things here that I did to sort of check myself before I wreck myself. One of them is the environment. If you put this fish, it's this freshwater fish, you put it in salt water, the water looks the same to me, but the fish is going to know something's wrong. And so sometimes, like this fish, we can be in an environment and know something's off. And it's good to speak at that moment. Go and talk to somebody. Go figure it out. Sometimes it could be like, maybe you don't fit in at work anymore. Like, you're the odd man out. That's a bit weird. So acknowledge those feelings as they come. The other thing is contribute all the time. But don't be the guy that's taking this photo. Like, everybody's chipping in. You're going to feel like, God, I helped that barn being built. So how your ideas are received, the effort that you make, you need to have a foundation of trust, and everything else is sort of built from that. So contribute. That will help you. This is your conviction. So this is like your short-term motivation, right? You wake up and you're like, I'm having such a good day. Or you wake up and the alarm's going off because of like load shedding hit at 2 in the morning, and you're like, and you get to work and there's so much traffic and you have a really bad day. Acknowledge when you have good days and bad days. When you have too much bad days, ask yourself, am I living my best life, or is there anything like causing cuck with that? Yeah, cool. Then you have your long-term motivation. So this is like, is what I'm doing actually is it what I want to do? Is the long-term of what I'm doing here actually going to bring you happiness? And the last thing is confidence. Believe in your own abilities. Like, highlight the things that you're really good at, and then look at improving your lowest points. All right, I'm moving on to the last thing. Cultivate empathy. A reasonable man adapts himself to the world, an unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. We have to be the one that wants change in a company, and you want to have a more empathetic place where everyone thinks about each other's feelings. Be that person, right? People will defend you. They want to be around you if you bring out the best in those people. They want people who display the qualities that they want to see in themselves. This brings me to the last point, which is kindness is more important than wisdom, and a recognition of this is the beginning of wisdom. Thank you very much.